Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our TGT podcast series, our weekly show the day after a league game, and there isn't many of those left, so you might find these popping up throughout the summer without a league game, of course, where we chat about the week's events, try to make sense of them and give you guys a little bit of therapy usually. But Arsenal did win, but so did West Ham, so any hope of European football on the actual kind of an okay-ish sort of level has still gone, and now we're left with the bottom of the barrel stuff to fight for on Sunday, which we're really looking forward to. Trust me, keep smiling. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, and make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe if you're new as well. Hope you've been enjoying all of the content. We hit 22,000 subs today, which is amazing, so thank you ever so much for all of the support as always. I'm joined by certain percentages of another podcast. Some people don't know what it is. We'll go into that in a second. It's the man who actually you can't find on his own show, but we found him here and we're very grateful for it. It's Andy. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
Unmute. It's been a while since I've done this. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yes, very good. We should say, if you are watching this live, as soon as you finish, go over to the Gooners Pods and give them a watch, because they're doing some really cool stuff, a lot of American Arsenal stuff. So make sure you check it out. And if you're not from America, even if you're not Arsenal, please do go and check it out still.
Do it.
But gradually, Andy's ownership of that podcast may be dropping throughout. So let's see the progress on that one.
And I see Danny's percentage is going up. So good for him.
Yeah, I don't. This is like the quickest deal ever. I hope that Danielette can get a takeover done this quickly, because that would be much appreciated. Speaking of which, Danny, absolute pleasure from the Bergkamp Wonderland, of course. How are you doing? You well?
I'm very good, thanks, Tom. It's nice to be on with four lovely Englishmen here. No matter what one of them might try and put on some kind of dodgy accent. But that 21% is the best 21 quid I've ever spent.
How much did it cost? Was it a penny per percent or more? Or
£1 per percent, but then once it gets into the second 50, it's half the price.
Oh, that's just genius. That's the way that Stan Kroenke should have been selling the Arsenal at this rate. We need it to work that way.
We're actually paying Danny to be part owner of the pod. He's not buying in. We're paying him.
I love how quick Danny is at changing the percentages reactively. It's quite impressive to me.
Legally binding, Tom.
There you go.
I'll run it into the ground like I've done my own pod. But don't worry, by the end of the year, they won't be doing any live shows anymore.
Pablo, one of our expert members, joins us as well this evening. How you doing, mate? I say you're more than just an expert member. You're our man on the ground at the protests is what you are. So we appreciate the live coverage you provide us. How are you doing, mate? Are you well?
I'm doing very well, Tom. Thanks for having us again. And yeah, I see I'm losing out on a percentage barrier here. I don't even know who they are. I'm joking.
Oh, dear me. Oh, Mike, we're so sorry. I genuinely am. Please take this as a joke. Anyway, we're going to get on with the Arsenal stuff, of course, because lots of stuff happened yesterday beyond just Arsenal, which obviously affected us indirectly and directly, knocking us out of competitions that half the people of the sport Arsenal don't want to be involved in, putting us into a situation where no one at Arsenal wants to be involved in this competition, and yet somehow it's put us into a situation where we're now conflicted with the morals of being an Arsenal fan, wanting to try and finish above Spurs and yet avoid finishing in another competition and relying on Manchester City to lose at home in the final game against Everton for that not to happen. We're going to go into all of this and more. Pab, I'm going to reverse order. So Pablo, obviously, yesterday's game, we will touch on that in its kind of, in an independent way. What did you make of a performance of a game where, again, we had to win in that situation? We didn't know what the West Ham score was going to be. We had to come out with a victory. And I got a very much a Villarreal kind of feeling of, well, we desperately need to win, but I'm watching a game in which the players don't seem to get that. Did you get that same feeling?
Yeah, it was kind of frustrating to watch. It was really frustrating to watch. I mean, we started off the game well. I thought at the beginning of the game, we sort of seemed to be getting into it. We got the goal, and then all of a sudden, as per usual, we just stopped playing, completely stopped playing. I felt that Palace was unlucky.
We can talk about Villa in a bit, don't worry.
Yeah, don't get me started on them. I just thought really Palace then started getting on top of us, and the 3-1 scoreline really sort of flattered us. But that's a sort of pattern that we keep having in this season. Is like we'll play teams like Chelsea and United and things like that, and then we'll seem to pull off results and put in good performances. The games that we expect to win, Fulham, Watford, all these sort of Wolves, all these. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Wolves and everyone.
It's the end of the season, mate, and you're done with Arsenal. That's what it is.
Do you know what? I actually took, what was it, about a week and a half away from any social media, away from Arsenal, and just looked at it in a completely different ball game. And I've got a different vision now for next season for doing it.
Detoxed. Is that an
I have detoxed.
Don't blame you, mate. I'm sure there's plenty of other people that could probably take that advice going forwards. Danny, the man that popped up to save us, ironically again, it seems there's an element of irony around Arsenal all the time at the moment. We see Granit Xhaka play at left back, and then as soon as we're knocked out of Europe, Bukayo Saka's fielded there, and obviously he's brilliant. We're desperately in need of points. We bring Martinelli on, who can't get a start under Arteta, and he saves us. It does seem the way that Arteta is this kind of very stubborn in the way he doesn't want to start the players that the fans do, and then when he kind of bends to their will and brings them on, they do make a very key difference, and we saw that with Martinelli yesterday.
It's almost like he either doesn't know what he's doing, or he's realised what he's doing isn't working, and to stay hip and on trend, he's not doing it. He's not going with the flow. We could all of us could pick the best team for every single game for the whole of this season now. And he hasn't picked them so often, and he's doing it over and over again. I've said it before. He has taken the worst aspects from Wenger and Pep and doing them. I've had a dream. I've had a vision. I've been on the ayahuasca. I've had a vision that if we play 2 false 9s or 2 false 8s, that'll work. Oh, I know. We'll play one bloke in midfield, someone who doesn't really do all the tackling, who doesn't create goals and doesn't score, running around like a headless chicken and making him look bad. Yeah, that's a great. Oh, that didn't work either. Now I'm going to do what Wenger did and play the wrong players in the wrong positions and bring players on with 68th minute substitutions and stuff like that. He'd gone for one extreme with Emery, where he'd go half time, you're lot shit, and bringing on 11 new players to leaving it too late. We can't get it. Can't get a manager who's going to look at it and do what we want him to do. Everybody knows that Martinelli should be getting more minutes. Even Lacazette should have come on last night. The whole thing is, you look at it and you go, I mean, even some of the players, when it was 1-1 and they're passing back and back and back, and I'm thinking, have you been told to do that? Do you not know how football works? We don't get points for passing back. It's driving us nuts.
Do you remember the days where, like, under Arsene Wenger, we would be 1-1 against a side, home or away, and the last 10 minutes, we would be literally camped outside their box, passing it around, waiting for the right time to do it. And I thought we were bad then. Like, that was what I thought was the worst I was going to see of Arsenal, when we were camped outside the box, unable to score, and eventually maybe Olivier Giroud would pop up a header in the last few minutes or so. But now it's like, we pass it round, but with no intent of getting really anywhere. And it took our substitute and our player that's not even our player, Martin Ødegaard, to finally chuck a ball into the box. I don't know about you, Andy, but was you also screaming at the television at the end of the game, just saying, cross the bloody ball?
Yeah, I hate the way we're playing. We take tons of risks out of the back just to keep the ball, and we don't even push forward and build the attack. So we're taking these massive risks, and then we play so slow that 2 passes later, it's just back with Leno. And it's so dangerous for us. And yeah, I was watching it like, just fucking do something. Oh, I don't know if we can swear on this podcast. On the Gooners pod, Pablo, which is a podcast. We swear on that one. But no, the whole point is that
you can swear if you want. You just have to apologise for Dave Lincoln's children, because Dave Lincoln's actually sent me an email saying, Tom, I love your podcast so much, and we love you, Dave, for listening. He says, the reason why I love watching it is because I can put it on in the car and the kids are still there and you don't swear at all. And it's great. So, no, but it's fine. If you need to, then Dave, this is your warning that this episode may contain some fruity language. So there you go.
Yeah, no, the whole point is that we break a press, then we have numbers going forward at pace. We just play so slow. We get little with no reward besides just like some possession. And I want to go to Danny's point where he brought up Pep Guardiola. I think this answers the classic question of, could Pep win if he didn't have the best players? And the answer is clearly he couldn't, because we're just trying to do what Man City are doing every week, and it's not working.
Have you lost complete faith then? No, go on, Danny. Go on.
I'll let Andy finish. So I'll just come after that and that's something else.
I said it last week on our pod. I've lost faith in Arteta with his decision making and the tactics, but I've also lost more faith in the board that I think, weirdly, Arteta is the only man that could manage us at this point and actually drive us forward, because no other manager would want to join us with how badly we're being run from board down. And I'll say this, because I tweeted it a little bit ago. Last night, I had the pleasure of getting tickets to go to the Colorado Avalanche hockey game. The Avalanche are rated preseason the #1 team in the NHL. We have the brightest future with the best team. We finished the league President Trophy winners, which isn't a huge deal in hockey, but it's a pretty big achievement where you're the #1 team in the league, right? Going into the playoffs, everyone is like, this is Avalanche's to lose. Last night, they upped the attendance to the second game to about 9,000 people. Were the Cronkies there? No, they were not. So they've got this beautiful team that they've built, and they won't even show up for what's the biggest games of the season. Absolutely outrageous. I was so upset that they were the only ones not in the executive box. So upset. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, Tom, are you panicking that Arteta might have seen River Plate Independiente last night where they played a midfielder in goal?
Yeah,
no subs,
wasn't it? He used to play for Valencia. They still won, so he might take inspiration from that. Yeah,
God, you can imagine it.
It's crazy. I mean, it's a crazy world at them, obviously, and that was obviously massively affected by things behind the scenes going on. But it does bother me that I've obviously backed this guy to the hilt throughout the season, to the detriment of myself quite a lot on social media and the chat box. And obviously a lot of people then taking pure pleasure in seeing Arsenal getting knocked out of European competition to then tweet me saying, do you still trust the process? And all of this. And I'm not annoyed by that whatsoever, clearly. But it is, for me, so frustrating that he is so stubborn in some of the ways with the team selections with that. But there is things that I feel like have obviously improved. And it's weird because I know that I said, and I sat here on the Raw Reaction show yesterday, straight after the game, well, not straight after the game, at 11 p.m. at night, and put the statistic that we are second in the form table over 23 weeks.
And what do they say when you say stuff like that?
The season doesn't start in December. And it's completely fair enough, and I completely agree with it. And then obviously, God bless Drew, because Drew obviously is tweeting this stuff as well, and he's saying that 13 wins, 5 draws, 5 losses, I think it is. If you said if we had sacked Arteta in December and the new manager came in and got us to second in the form table by the end of the season, I think everyone would be lauding him for what he's done. So I get that point, but also the argument of the season doesn't start in December is still a very valid one. Mm-hmm. And obviously in this journey, we've also been knocked out of the Europa League in utterly embarrassing fashion, where we offered nothing across 2 legs against a Spanish team, against Villarreal, that we should have beaten in the most ironic of circumstances because they're managed by Unai Emery as well. All of those things combined mean that I can't really just take that second in the form table into isolation, because so much other rubbish has happened as well. But at the same time, Pablo, I'm still sitting there, I'm going, that bloody game against Wolves, if we'd have just won that game against Wolves. Have you not found this season as equally encouraging in the second half as you found it mind-numbingly frustrating that things have gone against us, and also Arteta has been the architect of our own downfall so many times?
Yeah, I mean, I was on the same boat as you, Tom. I was completely backing Arteta all the way through, and I used to have arguments all over the place about, no, Arteta's the man. But like I said, I took a little bit of time away from Arsenal to have a think about things, and I'm looking at it as 2 different sides, or 2 different sets of issues here. First of all, I think the beginning of the season, one of our major problems is that we had a lot of older senior players who he was relying on. Because, I mean, any job you go into, if you're going to take over a business or anything like that, or become a manager of a hire company, you want experienced people, staff, to sort of back you and get you there. I think that's the approach that he took. And unfortunately, it didn't pay off, because the senior players that we did have in the squad at the time, they were the ones that were actually the issue. So up until January, when we got rid of all them players, I think that is a completely different Arsenal team to the second half of the league. Of the season. So although we're saying, the league starts, it doesn't start in January, but before that, we didn't really have the team capable of really performing, or to follow instructions.
Is there not part of that to go then, though, but that's on Arteta and Edu to make sure we have got the players? Because Arteta omitted Mesut Ozil, and I don't want to get into a whole debate about whether it was the right decision to omit him. But it's very, very clear to me that the main difference between December, pre-December, and post-December is that we've had a clear number 10 in Smith Rowe, and Ødegaard coming in as well. Was prior to that, we had a huge deficit of chance creation because we lacked that central creator. So is it on, Pablo, those guys, for not sorting us out in the summer and not making the right decisions with the squad?
Yeah, I mean, it should have been sorted out in the summer. But to think about it, I mean, I looked at it as before even Arteta took the job on. Yeah, anybody that was going to take that job on, my sort of realistic mind thought of it was that it was going to take 3 years minimum to try and get this team back up to top 4. Yeah. And or at least competing for titles and stuff like that. Arteta's come in. He wasn't the right man at the right time because he just didn't have the experience to manage a team in such a dire state, really. So we kind of got lumbered. Well, he didn't get lumbered. We got given the job. Yeah, we sort of thought, oh, maybe that's it. He's coming in. He's won the FA Cup. We got the right man, but he hasn't got the know-how of dealing with players like as he's the main guy. He's always been a number 2 to Pep, but now everything falls on him. And I think I said there's 2 issues. So one of them was the players. The other one is the fact I think he's learning on a job. And while he's learning on a job, he's also Spanish. I'm half Spanish. I can say this. They're stubborn. Stubborn people. And trust me, you ain't met my nan. So they're really stubborn people. So they choose not to. Well, he's chosen not to go like make the decisions quicker than what he should have. Yeah. So keep him playing William. All these silly mistakes he was making, like not playing Martinelli. Not bringing Smith Rowe in before December, not giving him the chance. He kept trying to rely on the older people. And once that wasn't working, that's when he should have, and this is my criticism of Arteta, he should have then made the decision to change things, but he left it too late. So that's what I think our season has sort of pretty much messed up with, is the fact that, for one, we didn't have the players to start off with. He was carrying a lot of dead weight. And 2, Arteta's learning on a job, and this ain't a job for you to be learning on.
You know, I was at the match last night with a friend who just likes football, and he was asking me the genuine question of, like, what would you do in the summer to fix Arsenal? And I was basically, everything we've said, I was just like in his ear. And he said to me, he goes, okay, so rewind 10 seasons. For 10 seasons, Arsenal have just been shit, right? And he's like, so you're expecting Arteta to fix that in the first year and a half? And I was like, it's a fair point, right? There's a lot of deadwood at the club. They've removed a lot of deadwood from the board, and they're slowly and so as supporters, we want instant gratitude and results. And I know that doesn't speak for, but the substitutions and the tactics and all that. I totally get that. But I'm also like at a higher picture, because like Pablo, I've removed myself from Twitter. I'm just like, it's too negative. But then I look at it, because I gave up on Arsenal like before Christmas, but I look at it and I'm like, well, it is going to take a long time. And that's why I don't have faith that any other manager would want this project. And that's why I have faith that Arteta is probably that man, because he is young. He does like the club, right? And he knows our history. And I think he's the man to bring us forward to a certain point. But, you know, I also agree with Pablo, where it's like, this isn't the role that you can gamble on, but maybe the board have told him he can, right? Maybe that's what they've given him. And the board have probably said, hey, take a manager who's going to gamble and try things, or take a manager who says, this is my way, like Wenger, and it's the highway. But then I also look at it and I'm like, well, you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. Because if this summer we went in and brought in number 10, half of our fan base would be like, well, why isn't Smith Rowe giving a shot? You know, we have a young English kid. Why isn't he giving the shot, right? And now we've seen what happens when we give him the opportunity. So it's crazy to me, man. It's crazy. I got to lower my percentage here. I feel like every time I talk, I got to lower my percentage.
But Tom, he's got a point with the 10 years thing. But if you're in training to be a chef, and for 10 years it's been absolute nonsense, you come in and you decide, I'm going to replace sugar with salt because I think it looks better. How many times are you going to be able to put up with that?
I get the theory, because say if you've got a restaurant that's been bad for 10 years and you've now been the head chef for 18 months and you haven't really progressed anything, I think maybe that there's an argument to say that there's questions to be had. I think that the thing is, in football, you can see kind of improvements in specific sectors. Like, I think defensively, obviously, that has been an area that we have improved. I mean, you look at where we are defensively in the league table, and that shows something. But it's come at such a big sacrifice to what we're capable of going forwards. It's almost not been worth it, because it's made the football absolutely dire, and we can't create consistently. And whilst I wanted a team that was able to be more resolute defensively and to not concede as many goals, I wanted it. I don't think it's a case of being a kid in a toy shop wanting everything. I wanted to improve the defence, but maintain how good we were going forwards. And it just feels like a calamitous amount of decisions have been done wrongly. I know that we've had really kind of levels of misfortune that few other teams have had to deal with. I think that VAR has genuinely done us in so many times this season. It has been frustrating. I know for those very vehemently Arteta out people, they don't want to touch kind of the VAR and look at the injuries and stuff like that. But it has changed the fortunes of this season, unfortunately, in so many ways. I mean, I don't know how Benteke was still on the pitch. Anyone know how Benteke was still on the pitch yesterday? He assaulted him, didn't he? He just assaulted him.
They should have been down to about 9 men, I think.
You have to schlup on who was it he tackled? I can't remember. Was he put his foot down?
There was Saha as well. Didn't he have a issue as well? So
it wasn't Tierney, was it?
It might have been Tierney. I missed the first 5 minutes.
No, it was Chambers. Wasn't it Chambers?
Oh, that's right. It was one of the backs, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Chambers. But I mean, this happens all the time, Tom. It's not an excuse. It's not me just trying to go, oh, yeah, we've had a bad season because of VAR. But there's so many games, so many incidents you can go back to. I mean, I saw someone put something on Twitter earlier on, and it was quite funny, and it showed all these reckless tackles against us, yeah? And then it showed the David Luiz red card, where it was like a knee scrape. And you're having incidents like we had against Crystal Palace, not being punished, and then we're getting players sent off for literally touching with the knee. It's just
last season Aubameyang got sent off at Crystal Palace for the exact same tackle we saw on Callum Chambers. It is just a lack of consistency. Some of the rules are ridiculous, and what frustrates me even more, if you're listening to the commentary here in the UK, I won't give the broadcaster the credit, but Peter Walton is just the cheerleader of all referees at this point. He's got his little pom-poms in the studio and cheering, go refs, I agree with all your decisions, because that is how it comes across. He just never disagrees with anything. And then what's really funny is that on Sky, they've got Gallagher, who is obviously a former referee, who kind of tries to justify or disagree with the decisions. And then sometimes he goes, oh, I disagree with this or whatever. And then the FA gets an appeal from a club, and then they overturn the decision that Gallagher agrees with, and it's just like no one knows what's going on. It's absolutely mental.
Did you hear what he said, I think, about the incident? He said it should have been an amber card, I think, for the tackle on Chambers. He said that was more of an amber incident. What the hell is an amber incident?
I didn't see the ref getting one of those out his pocket, to be honest. It's a great description. I get the theory behind it. I use that analogy sometimes, but for an official ref to justify a decision by saying, I'm not sure if it was right or wrong, that's not what we're here for. Referees are meant to know the difference between right and wrong, whether it's a foul or not a foul, or a red card or not a red card. It's as simple as that. And even some of the rules that are in place, like the handball rule next season, I don't know if you guys saw the Callum Wilson goal that was ruled out again at the end of the game against Liverpool, and then Joe Willock went and scored 5 minutes later, or a couple of seconds later, I think it was. But that was ruled out for handball, and the commentary said, and the pundits afterwards said, oh, but next season that would have counted because they're changing the handball rule. Actually, and they had to apologise 15 minutes later, because it actually turns out that is still going to be disallowed next season. And effectively, like in the FA Cup final where Jose Perez, it touched his hand and then went on, if it touches a player's hand and then it goes to someone else on the team and they score, that's fine. But if it's the person who's actually scored the goal where it touches a hand, and or like we saw with Martinelli yesterday, it was very close to maybe being construed as handball, then that will be ruled out. They're now splitting it between the player that actually scores and the player that assists. So you can assist with your hand, you just can't score with one, is what it turns out to be. It's mental. But I feel like we are going off on a bit of a tangent. And obviously I do want to kind of gear the conversation towards the main topic of the show, which is around the idea and of where we finish. Now we can finish, I think, 7th, 8th or 9th on the last game of the season. It all depends on the games around us. Spurs obviously play against Leicester away from home. Everton travel to Manchester City. And we play Brighton in what would be, on paper, the easiest tie of the games, although our history of Brighton is not the best, although we did manage to beat them this season. But I want to know from all of you guys about where you kind of want to finish. If you are open to being involved in kind of the... is this where are you doing an oath? Are you going to tell the truth? Yeah.
No, I have a question, a genuine question. What is the 7th position league that we're going to get into?
The UEFA Conference League is.
Can you explain that to me?
I can give you a rundown of what that is.
Yeah, please, because I genuinely don't know.
So obviously, prior to this, we had the Champions League and the Europa League, and it's always been like this. other than when it wasn't. But
Someone clip that.
yeah, but in my lifetime anyway. But from next season, there will be a third tier UEFA competition, which is called the UEFA Conference. Now, the winner of the Europa League, of course, as we would have found out had we have actually tried, would have qualified for the Champions League next season. The winner of the Conference League gets the monumental accolade of getting into the Europa League for next season. But basically, the coefficients work where it's going to be one team, I think, from the top 5 leagues. So one English, German, Spanish, Italian, and French. And then eventually, the further you go down the coefficients, the more teams you see. So I think Scotland have got 2. Belgium, I think, have got maybe 2 or 3. And it works the same way as all of the others, like group stage and then knockouts. But the only difference is in the Europa League's being shortened. So had we have actually qualified, we wouldn't have had to worry about a last 32 bollocks, because it's actually just going to go straight to the last 16 now in the Europa League. And they're also going to go straight to the last 16 in this UEFA Conference. And remember how the teams for the Champions League dropped down into the Europa League? Well, the third place team in the Europa League, Andy, you're going to love this. They dropped down into the UEFA Conference League. So Rapid Vienna, who finished third in our group last season behind Molde, they would drop down into the Conference League. So it's
what I'm hearing is this is just a UEFA. I'm just hearing that this is just a UEFA money grab. Then is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's more teams involved in European competitions.
When are they being played though? Because it used to be Tuesday. So when are the Europa League games being played?
Also Thursday. So they basically run. I think when it's 32 teams in both competitions, you're going to have 30. So you're going to have 32 games played across a Thursday across Europe. It's going to be. It's silly.
That sounds like a competition we could win, though.
Yeah, but also no. But this is the point. Well, this is the important point, because it also sounds like a competition that Spurs could win, and this is an argument that has been put forward to say, look, if you don't want us to be in this competition, at minimum, our aim should be stopping Spurs from entering something they can actually win for once. So I'm going to go around the room. We're going to get your thoughts. There's 2 questions I'm going to ask you, and obviously we'll see how the conversation unfolds. But Pablo, one, do you want us to try and avoid this? Do you want us to lose or draw and finish outside of it? And secondly, how important is still finishing above Spurs to you, even if it means qualifying for this petty competition?
Listen, after the season that we've had, I know a lot of people are saying, well, if this is your target, then this is what's wrong with the club. But after the season that we've had and we still finish above Tottenham, that to me is it's the only thing I can have this season. I can't have anything else. We ain't winning any cups. We're not qualifying to any major. So the only thing we do have is finishing above Tottenham. And I'll tell you what, I'll take that every single any time. I don't care about the Conference League. I don't care about anything. I'd rather finish above them than not finish above them. And in terms of the Conference League, I mean, I don't see what people's major issue is with it. Now, to me, it's going to come down to Arteta and to the decisions that he makes. The league is a priority next season. We have to concentrate on the league. Yeah, the games on Thursdays, I believe, is going to be an opportunity to play the likes of Aziz, Balogun, even fringe players that are not necessarily playing week in, week out. Yeah, so if you've got like Chambers that might be our backup right back at that next season, so play him, play Pablo Mari, play Holding. You know, all these players that ain't getting regular football, that's an opportunity for them to get game time in. Yeah. The only issue I think we're going to have, or Arteta's going to have actually, is the fact that if we do go into this tournament, we are by rights, and not being big-headed, but we are the favourites to win it. If we're in it, we should be. As Arsenal Football Club,
depends if Villarreal are going to qualify.
Yeah, there is that. But that's the thing, is like we are sort of like favourites to win it, and that is going to apply a lot of pressure on Arteta. Now, I'm scared that because of that pressure that he has to win that, he will play a stronger team on a Thursday, and then start trying to mix and match teams for the league games. So there's a double-edged sword, really. I mean, I want to finish above Tottenham. I don't care about this Conference League, because I think if he plays his card right, this could be good for the future to get young players breeded through. But I'm just scared that because of the pressure of us having to win it, he's going to go with the decision of playing strong teams in this tournament.
Yeah. I really want to know what a double-headed sword is, Pablo. Is that a fork? I'm pretty sure that's just a fork, isn't it? Double-edged sword, I think is what you're...
Yeah, that's the one.
We went for a fork. We can go for cutlery if you like. That's fine.
In Brazil, that's how we say it, all right?
Okay, fair enough. Danny, now 33.02% owners, doing some quick maths as Andy tries to make this more challenging with every with every decimal point that's added. Where's your head at with this? Do you care about finishing above Spurs? Is it something, and are you open to being in this competition?
I was thinking this competition is much like European competition, much like your wedding. You've got the Champions League where you're invited the whole day and the wedding and the after bit. And then you've got the Europa League, which is just the disco and the party at the end. And then you've got the Europa Conference League, which is you're allowed in for the last 10 minutes when there's puke all over the tables and there's only stale sausage rolls left over that no one really wants. That's the analogy that I'm looking at. So I'm not interested.
UEFA are still collecting tickets on the door as you come in to get the money. That's
they still want their cut. They're still going to come and take half your wedding cake and half the presents. It's an absolute shambles. It's just yet another money grab where they don't give a damn about the fans. All they do is more TV revenue, get more team. At first you think, oh, maybe they're trying to help the smaller teams make a little bit of money. No, they're not. No, they don't care about you. And the as far as the St Totteringham's Day, we've been spoilt with them. I don't really want another one. It's much like birthdays. I've had loads. I don't really want any more. I'm perfectly happy to finish below them. But looking at the last games of the season, Leeds below us, they could still finish above us. They're going to beat West Brom. Everton are not going to beat Man City, and Spurs are away to Leicester. So they're all going to lose those games. Leeds are going to win. Leeds could finish above the fourth, and we could end up finishing in 8th or 9th position. I don't care where we finish, as long as we're not in that pony bloody European made-up nonsense league. It's pointless.
That's really interesting because obviously I think the chat box would call me a bit of a hypocrite if I didn't press you on it because I've been saying it for quite a while. Is that I can't get my head around not wanting to finish above Spurs. Like I feel like it's ingrained in me as an Arsenal fan, but you don't care. It's not.
No,
it's just.
Oh, they're inferior to us in every way. They're rubbish. For finishing above them, it's like finishing above West Ham now. It means absolutely nothing.
We can't do
that, 18 years in a row, wasn't it, or something like that? It's just so many of them. It means absolutely nothing. I get more pleasure from that one picture of Harry Kane standing there, clapping to an empty stadium, crying, asking where the toilets are. I got more from that, and the Harry Kane leaving in the summer and Son leaving in the summer. I'll get more joy from that than finishing above them. It really doesn't matter. Next season we'll finish above them, and we will again for the next 18 seasons after that. What is important is next season. I don't want to waste time, effort, and money and all that lot playing those shitty games. I don't even want to be in the Europa League next season.
Same.
Go on, Andy. I mean, does this mean I'm assuming then you don't want to be in the conference?
Well,
either?
no. You know what would be the ideal scenario is if we finish above Spurs and then we politely decline to enter into that conference league.
Are you allowed to do that?
What we do then is we have to hope, or basically we bribe Everton or we bribe City. Arteta gets on the phone to his mate Pep and says, "Look, you need to let Everton beat you. That's what you need to do, because we don't want to be in it."
Yeah, no, that would be my finish above Spurs. But decline. But then people always say, well, you can't attract great players if you don't have European football. Does the Conference League still count towards that? Like that grandeur of
those interviews are like, I've always dreamed of playing in the UEFA Conference.
Yeah.
But Andy, the only way we can finish above Spurs and not be in it, Leeds win, they'll end up on 59 points. Spurs need to lose about 14-0 to affect their goal difference. And then we need to draw with Brighton and Everton win. Then we'll finish 9th, Spurs 10th, and then Everton and Leeds above us. Because Spurs have got a goal difference of 21.
If Spurs drop points and us and Everton win, we go above them, basically. So that's what we need to hope happens. And
so I don't know. I was looking just now, quick Google search, but they were saying like the Europa League money is 13 million euros, and then this was going to be 8.5 million euros.
Don't get out of bed for that.
I mean,
where did you see that? Because I feel like that was on my video this morning, and I worked that out. There's been an article.
No, I literally just money from UEFA Conference League versus Europa League, and it was those.
When did that article come out?
It's from Marca.
When? Are they watching my videos? Because I literally worked that figure out.
exactly that figure as well.
Literally, I did that this morning. I said
18th of May. So 2 days ago.
Okay. I must have missed it. That's really annoying. I was hoping that Marker had been watching TGT trying to work out. I worked basically. They must have done the same maths as me because I was trying to work out like how it breaks down from like the multipliers of the ultimate prize money from the competition, and it does work. So they must be doing the same kind of maths, which means I've done the right thing. So that's
I somewhat agree with Danny though, because like this season, if anything, finishing above Spurs will mean absolutely nothing come June, because the biggest story for Spurs is going to be Harry Kane leaving. And that for me is enough to celebrate. So don't care what happens this weekend. If we do it, excellent. But if I'm in the same boat as Pablo, if we do enter that BS conference, it's got to be for the kids. We can't put any stock in it. Don't care even if we make it to the quarterfinals and we're playing some Turkish team, like doesn't matter. Just let the kids play, let the fringe players play, and just give them the opportunity to prove themselves, right? And let the academy take it over.
Yeah,
are we allowed to do that, Tom? Are we allowed to play like all under 21s or under? But what they do is not taking it seriously.
I mean, if you register the players, right? If you register the players, then you register that they're the ones who play.
Yeah,
it would be weird.
They should be allowed to play.
It would be weird if we registered like the same Premier League squad. But obviously with UEFA, you don't have to register players under a certain age, do you? So if they're like players that are under a certain age don't have to be registered, I'm pretty sure. Like Aziz wasn't in the Europa squad for the group stage.
That's true, yeah.
Play. So,
but then we have the Johnson's Paint Trophy as well. So that means we'll be playing in 4 cups.
Yeah, well, is it the EFL? Is they called the EFL trophy now?
So Papa John's now, isn't it?
Yeah, Papa. Yes, it's the Papa John's. There are other pizzas are available.
Did our under 23s almost get relegated?
Yeah,
last year of the season.
Yeah. Well, so then maybe we got to rethink this. But if we created a European,
I don't think the kids can do it. I'm not sure.
Now that I'm thinking about it, but if we created like a European Super League for our under 23s, we'd never get relegated from that. So what would just do
maybe
that?
That's what this is. Maybe this is the secret Super League of the kids, and you're going to see the big 5 teams of Europe chucking in the kids. But I was saying this on the show this morning. I was like, typically, continental sides take UEFA competitions very seriously at all levels. So they don't rotate like we do. They genuinely, like you look at any sides, even in Spain, France, Italy, Germany, they play their big sides. They don't rotate heavily. They will look at this competition as a real opportunity to win some silver. I mean, I wrote a piece this morning about FC Utrecht, who are suing the KNVB, which is basically the Dutch FA, because they've put the Eurovision Song Contest on the same day as the playoff final in Holland, which I think the winner of goes into the UEFA Conference second round of qualification, which is crazy in itself. And they are suing, but they are taking preliminary action against them because they're moving the game to Sunday, which is technically not allowed, because if you can't fulfill a fixture, you're meant to give a 3-0 defeat straight to the other team. And the Eurovision Song Contest is being held in Rotterdam, which is where Feyenoord play, and that's who FC Utrecht are playing. So they have moved it to Sunday, and Utrecht have gone, no, hold on, you can't do that. If you can't fulfill the fixture, you got to give us a 3-0 win. That's how it works. And they're that desperate to get into the second round of qualifying for the UEFA Conference. So they will want to win it, these teams, which is crazy.
See, to me, I just think like if we don't have the conference, then when are you going to start bringing in the fringe players and the youth players? Because you want to put your strongest side out for the Premier League every single game, guaranteed. Yeah. And then just imagine someone drops off form. Then you're going to be bringing someone in to replace that person that's dropped off form who hasn't had any match at all throughout the season. So then they're not going to be able to do the job. I'm trying to look at it as a bigger... I don't really care about the name of the conference, what the prize is or anything, because if we're in it, we don't get any extra money. If we're in it, we get
I feel like they call it the UEFA Mega Trophy. We might be a little bit more, but they called it the conference.
Just made it worse for us. But my view of it is the longer term of it, to see getting these players playing. And if we do need someone to come in and replace someone that's injured or someone that's not pulling their weight, then that player has had a few games throughout the season in this Conference Cup thingamajig.
Yeah.
I do like Antonio Banks' comment. We cannot complain about the Super League, but lack integrity of the game for other competition. That's totally right. Like, in my opinion,
UEFA, I feel like I can then.
Right, because like I've been saying it for a while. Like UEFA, they pissed and moaned that the Super League wasn't for the fans and it was atrocious for football. They didn't even think about moving the Champions League final to England. They were offered a handful of stadiums to move it to. They didn't even think through that. They just said, no, what's better for our pocketbooks, right? And this is just the same thing. And I read somewhere back during the Super League that when they moved that Champions League format, there's going to be such a run of games for a lot of these teams that there's suggestion that each major league will have to drop 2 teams. So we'll go from a 20-team Premier League to an 18-team Premier League.
Oh, really?
And I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just like...
I haven't heard anything on that level.
Right.
But I mean, nothing is beyond the realms of possibility anymore. So
I look at it and I'm like, as atrocious as the Super League was, like this whole new format is just another money grab, right? And it's just another reason to have our fan base have to travel to these, I'm sure, lovely, but very weird and very distant countries they're going to have to go to and spend the money to watch the Arsenal play.
For me, that's the only positive side is some of the people I've known on Twitter that go to games go, well, as an away Arsenal fan, you're going to love this. You're going to go to some magnificent countries and see some great little stadiums and all that. And I understand that, but I'll be sat at home here watching it. So I don't really care where they play. I'd rather we weren't.
Yeah, we've actually got to sit down and watch it. I've got to do a preview show, a reaction show to FC.
And you won't be drunk doing any of those. They'll be drunk all the way through all of those games. They won't remember them the next day. Well, you're going, I've had 3 hours sleep and now I've got to go and write some articles.
Yeah.
Well, what annoys me is that it continues Sunday football. Like, we don't get any Saturday matches,
I was looking at the before this is the 5th European competition. We've had the Champions League, which was the European Cup. Then we had the Cup Winners' Cup. Then we had the Fairs Cup, UEFA Cup, Europa League. Then we had the Intertoto Cup. And I'm just reading. Then we got this new one. I'm just reading about the last ever 2008 UEFA Intertoto Cup. 8 of the 11 Intertoto Cup winners. There was 11 winners of that tournament entered into the UEFA Cup by winning their qualifying ties round into the first round. 5 of those 8 sides went into the first round, and then 4 of those 5 qualified for the round of 32. Only Braga progressed to the round of 16. Look, I mean, it's just overly complicated. Not what football fans want. Team A v Team B, home and away. They go through. That's how we want it. Then the competitions will make fun. We don't care about the group stage. And didn't I read, Tom, that they're doing bigger groups as well? So the groups before were all 4 teams. Now they're going to be, 5 or 6?
Oh, I didn't know if that was.
Yeah.
I haven't said that. I haven't seen that. I know about the Champions League changing to a Swiss league model, but I don't know if that's.
Right. We all know what that is.
Yeah, so it's the Super League in UEFA form. That's
pretty much that's all it is.
It is crazy. I mean, I haven't seen about the group stage.
Here's a question though that we're all right. So with the new Champions League format in a few seasons from now, the coefficients will dictate which some teams get in, right? So for us winning this conference, does that help our coefficient go up? So when we do in the future finish 8th or 9th, we get a Champions League spot?
Probably not.
No.
We'll probably get fractions of points. So.
Yeah, probably.
I can't see anything about the size of the groups.
I think I was reading about it on some young bloke who's got a YouTube channel, and he explained the entire thing. And I'm sure he said they're expanding it the Conference League to 6 teams per group. And loads. Oh no, it wasn't you. No, it was.
Okay. For me, I was thinking. Oh, I'm sure I didn't say that.
No, you're massive. Congrats on the 20,000 subs as well. Now, isn't
That's huge.
22. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's
22.
I mean, I don't know why they're just so interested for some. I don't know what it is. It's weird. It's like they love transfers or something. That's what it is. Here's a tip: if you make an Arsenal channel, talk about transfers. It works. So there you go. But if we're talking about kind of that, how do you then go into the summer in this competition, right? Because I mean, you've probably all been looking at the finances. I mean, Andy, you were just talking about the difference between all of these different competitions. The Champions League money in comparison to these two is absolutely vast. Like the fact that Champions League sides, like ironically what we weren't able to open up a big gap on all of the teams that weren't in the Champions League for that long is frankly embarrassing. Like I used to look at the like Arsenal was a bit of a club under Arsene Wenger during those years, as a really amazing achievement that we managed to stay in top four this entire time. But it's no wonder that we did, because everyone else in the league was barely getting any money, because there was the only other competitions they were involved in were paying them peanuts in comparison to the Champions League. I know we were using a lot of it to pay off our stadium debt, but at the same time, the competition just wasn't there. And now we've got to a stage where everyone has closed up to us. We're now in a situation where we're the 8th, 9th best team in the league this season. And not only because of luck or VAR, which we have talked about, but teams like West Ham, teams that are like Leicester, deserve to be in those positions above us and have been better than us and are crafting squads that are better than ours. And I don't know about you, Danny, but I get really frustrated when people use the names of clubs to batter them. Like when people use terms like West Ham are above us. How can West Ham be above? Well, how can Leicester be above us? And I say, because they bloody deserve to be. Like you're not ever there on merit. And the irony is that the same people absolutely lambasted the Super League for bringing in teams on historic merit when they're putting Arsenal up on a pedestal on historical merit and only that. So how do you, in your mind, and this is going to be the big question, solve this problem? How do we get back to that stage? And is it going to be under Arteta?
You're right about the saying how they're above us. The classic one is, how did Leicester win the league? Well, bloody good owners, bloody good manager, and bloody good players, and bloody good investment. There you go. That's how they did it. And how do we get back the way? I think patience is going to be the key word. And I know for Chelsea it works chopping and changing, but Chelsea have just lost the FA Cup final. They're about to lose the Champions League final, and they may not scrape into the top four because it looks like, it could be close that Liverpool, because Leicester have got 60. Chelsea could still not make it. If Leicester and Liverpool win, Chelsea could make 5th. But
Chelsea have got Aston Villa on the last game, which, they beat Spurs. It'll be a tough game for them. Leicester have got, obviously, Spurs themselves. And I think Liverpool have got a fairly simple game against Crystal Palace. So you imagine they're going to make it. But, that's dream scenario if Chelsea drop out, because that'd be brilliant.
It'd be hilarious, because Tommy Tickles wouldn't be the new messiah when it comes to football. But how do we do it? You've got to use the right players in the right positions and do what is best for the club, not do what is best for you as a manager. Whether you don't keep trying to save face and go, we saw it last night, 1-0 up, shut up shop, and then they scored, like it always happens. And then you look back at the history books and you'll go, oh, we beat Palace 3-1. That's a bloody good result. No, it isn't. Now, and for the next week, we'll go, that was a shit game. We played shit most of the time. We fluked it at the end. But historically, you go 3-1 win. Oh, that was a great season. Oh, Arteta knew what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing at times. And I don't know why he keeps doing it. And I can't think of a logical reason why, apart from not wanting to spite his nose by chewing his face off, or some combination of words like that. That's the only thing. Because
could be a double-headed sword, mate. So,
we just need to be patient. And I don't think any other manager is going to be able to do it. Because if anyone else comes in, the first thing they're going to want to do is bring in all their people, bring in £200 million worth of talent, and then get rid of half of the players there. And we have got a nucleus of a really good spine. It amazes me when people slag off Leno. My God, see some of the slaves he did last night.
Well, don't get me started on that. That really annoys
me. I've been guilty of it a bit. He has got very flappy wrists at times.
He blocked it and saved it last night. I thought, well, there you go.
He has good games and he has bad games. And I think that the thing about Leno for me is that I have previously backed him, and honestly, the Emi Martinez debate used to absolutely kill me at times. It really got on my nerves, because I understood why we sold him, because no one was coming in for Leno, and he'd had 10 good games. And it was like, look, we've got an amazing bid from Villa. It makes sense at this time to move him on and keep Leno, because no one's coming in for Leno, and he's our number one. What has transpired is that Emi Martinez has gone on to be the best keeper in the Premier League this season, which is fair play to him. He's got a better save percentage, I think, than any other keeper in the table. And it does look really silly. But I still understand why we did sell him at the time, and it's not a criticism of the club. Yeah, we can go around and say, yeah, we probably made a mistake. But back with the benefit of hindsight, it's very easy to say that. But Leno, for me, I could let him go. I'm very, very open to that.
Don't Dortmund want to know? Isn't Berkey? Is it Berkey at Dortmund?
Berkey and Hitz are the Dortmund keepers. Yeah,
neither of them are brilliant.
No,
Milan could do with a new goalkeeper. Handanovic is I always hear that someone screaming Handanovic. I don't remember who does it. Is it a commentator?
I don't know.
Handanovic!
Are you playing too much FIFA?
I've not played that game in years. I can't. But there's so many teams out there that would need a good goalkeeper, and he is a good goalie, and we'll get 30, 35 million for him.
Well, he's
and then can we get a replacement that's as good as him for 30 million?
Well, I think Bono from Sevilla is a decent choice, to be honest. I think he's very good. 15 clean sheets this season, 28 goals conceded in 33, so less than the goal a game, which is good for them. Got them into a title race with his keeping. So I think there are keepers out there. People talk about David Raya at Brentford as a homegrown option as well.
That costs too much. The Ajax one, he looks pretty decent.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's on a ban though, and
He's been taking his wife's birthday goal.
He's got an appeal in June, so we see what happens.
He didn't want to get pregnant.
But the thing with Leno to me,
it's crazy.
The thing with Leno is last season he was one of our players of the season.
Yeah, people quickly forget that, don't they?
That's what I'm saying. That's so easily forgotten. He went for even this season. He's pulled us out of a few sticky situations, but he'll have a few bad games, and then it's almost like we sort of don't back our players. Like I'll use Willock as a good example. Look how good he's playing over there because he's been shown the love and support from the Newcastle fans. I'm not saying Willock is right for Arsenal, so I kind of contradicting myself
there. On that in the questions.
Yeah. But to me, I think that because of the way we are as Arsenal fans and the social media pressure and everything else, as soon as one of our players has a slight dip in form, that's it. That we've got either they're the best players going or we got to get rid of them. They're rubbish, and we've never seen anything so bad in our lives. And we got to stop doing that as a fan base, I think.
Arsenal fans fickle, flip floppy. Sure.
Yeah. So to answer your original question, Tom, I think for us, you got to look at it in waves, right? So a couple of seasons ago, we saw wave one where we got rid of some board members and we replaced them with what we perceived or the Cronkies perceived were football-minded folk to make up for the lack of the Cronky knowledge, right? Because they don't know what the hell world football and what's going on with transfers. I think wave two is we got rid of the outrageous wage packets players were on. Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the beginning of this season we cleared what £500,000+ a week, right?
An absolute fortune.
If not more. I think wave three was player purchases and youth inclusion. I think we're seeing some positive signs in the transfer window with Bar Pepe, Kieran Tierney, Gabriel Partey, our youth inclusion with Smith Rowe, Saka, Martinelli. I think it was a lot of health-related issues where they just are nursing him back, right? Why rush him back when we know that we're going to finish 7th if or 10th, right? What's the point? Don't rush it. Just give him a summer to relax. I don't know if he's going to be included in the Brazilian squad this summer. I hope so. It'd be great if he did, yeah.
He is. He's in the Olympic squad.
Oh, excellent. And then
so is Gabriel.
Sweet. And I think this summer is the most important, right? Get rid of some of these players that we were talking about. It makes me laugh to the point you guys were talking about before where everyone's like, Bellerin's not good enough for Arsenal. Let's sell him to Barcelona or PSG. It's like, well, hold on a second. If he's not good enough for us, why are we selling him to them? And everyone's like, well, because they'll give us a lot of money for him. It's like, okay, well then have that be your first argument that let's use a young player who is decent and use that to get money. But we point at the wrong things, right? Like we jump on these fans, and like I just saw someone in the comment be like, Willock had a good season, let's sell him for £30 million. Well, we don't really have any central midfielders going into next season because we're getting rid of all the loanees and we're going to sell a couple. So it's like maybe we should look at some of these players and say, like, where are we at as a club, and are we going to actually replace Guendouzi leaving, LT11 leaving, the 2 loanees going back to Real? Like, so I think this summer is going to be huge with who we sell and who we bring in. And I hope our recruitment efforts are on point, but they've pointed to being that, right? I've been on party. I've been giving Tom crap in our WhatsApp group because I've just been like, you told me he was going to transform the team, but he's being played just poorly. Like tactically, it's not fair to him. Right. So, but that's off the pitch. On the pitch, we need Arteta to just change.
In terms of personnel, I think like you're saying, off the pitch, they're bringing in the right people. They're sort of covering the areas that we need replacing. Bringing in Gabriel, Partey, all that. We've been crying out for players like that for a long time. Arteta's issue, unfortunately, is actually on the pitch.
Yeah,
it's not off the pitch, and that's the bit that worries me, because I like Arteta, and I wish he would sort himself out on a football pitch, but maybe just get him as the head of recruitment or something with Edu.
Yeah, well,
both them together.
I'm not worried about this transfer window, really. Like, I look at the last two and I see, like, as you say, Gabriel and Partey come in. I see Tierney and Martinelli coming in the previous one. I mean, Pepe's, I think that was more Raul, and obviously Willian I look at as more into the Raul side of things too. And I know it's not been perfect, and there has been the Runnelsons and the Willians, as I've already said, but we have made some big changes. And so I have the hope that I think the transfer window is going to be okay. I think I'm going to get to the end of it and think, you know what, we've done all right. That's my prediction in the most vague way possible, as I think it's going to be an okay transfer window. But it is, as you say, Pablo, it's in what we do with those players. We could get we could go get a Grealish right now, even though I don't think that's going to be realistic. And I still don't think. I know, so do I. But I still don't think that would transform us, because the way that we're playing football right now is such a problem. And there is always going to be the back of my mind going, well, if Arteta had better players. But then I do look at the squad and I go, well, he's got these guys. And like on paper, they are seemingly quite a bit better than they're actually performing, especially our attacking players. And maybe, only maybe, the signs of the form table since Christmas are elements maybe that there's potential there. Obviously, we've seen performances like home to Spurs, away to West Brom and Brighton, away to Leicester, home to Leeds, where we really did pop off, and home to Chelsea when we absolutely smashed them, and performances like that, and even defensive displays like away to Chelsea so recently, where that defensive side of the game came in really handy to get those 3 points. And that does fill me with a bit of hope, but it's just the consistency and then a little bit of flair that we seemingly are missing. And that's where I really start to worry, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And we got the 4 league wins in a row for the first time since the start of the 18-19 season.
4 away wins in a row, is that all?
No, 4 league wins in a row. The last time we did that was when Emery did it, and I think we had 7 wins in a row at the start of his first game of the season were Man City and Chelsea, which we lost. And then he had 7 wins in a row, a few draws, and then another few wins. I think, wasn't that 23 games unbeaten or something? We all thought, that's it.
It was 22. And that's when Mustafi was just legendary status.
Yeah,
like unreal.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But,
dearie me. Oh, it's so frustrating, isn't it? But it's what we have right now, and we've got to deal with this fact. Anyway, we are moving into the final section of the show, which I so unequivocally haven't stolen from the Gooners pod, for user questions.
Okay, here we go.
We're getting very close to Andy losing all ownership entirely. He's only down to 7% now. Let's see if he's lost it all by the end. Anyway, it is time for questions in the chat. So if you have got one to throw in, please make sure you do, and we'll try and get through as many of them as possible. Use the capital Q so they can stand out. Otherwise, I'm just not going to be able to see it because there are loads that typically come in. So try and help them stand out. I'm going to kick this off, though, with a question just to kind of get things rolling, because I imagine there may be some questions on Willock, which I will highlight as we go through. But Pablo, Andy said there, he's like, we've got a player that's scoring goals away at Newcastle. We have lacked goals from midfield quite a lot. But we've got Joe on loan at Newcastle scoring loads of goals, and he's not getting Arsenal's team. Could be worth a bit of money. What side of the line are you falling on for this summer's future of Joe Willock?
I'm thinking selling. I know a lot of people probably think, oh, well, look how many goals he's scoring.
Andy just died inside. You know that, right?
Well, the thing is, it's not even really down to Joe's issue himself. I think it's more down to Arteta and the style of football that he plays. He played Joe a fair few times and it just didn't work. He looked lost in the middle of the pitch, but that's not because of him. I think that's more because of the tactics that we play and how Arteta, I think he overcomplicates things way too much. Yeah. So maybe Joe Willock just ain't up to that sort of style of football, where I think in Newcastle it's been kind of almost been made like centre of attention. Just go and do what you want, play your best football that you can and crack on with it. And that's the results that they're getting. Where with us, Arteta's so like strict in the way that he wants every single player to play, that's not Willock's strength. So to me, if he doesn't suit our system, although he might be a very good player and be doing very well, get rid of him and bring on people that will suit Arteta's system, because unfortunately are going to have him next season. We don't have a choice. They're not going to sell him. So we might as well get the players to sort of suit his system. And then if it doesn't work, fair enough, get rid of him.
How much would you sell Arteta for? I'm surely we can get a good 6 million for the guy now, right? Definitely so. I mean, I say it as a joke, but genuinely, teams end up paying clubs for managers at the moment. I mean, they've done it with who is it? It's Nagelsmann's gone for a good 20 million euros, I think, to Bayern Munich or something like that.
I read somewhere this week that he was linked with Barcelona's job.
Oh, Hansi Flick, you're talking about the Bayern. Yeah. So, I mean, Bayern are basically trying to sweet talk him away from the German job, but it's not going to happen. He'll still go Germany.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's kick off our questions with Chris P, who Danny says, would you bring Ødegaard back if we bought Buendia as well? He wants both of them. So if we get Buendia, would you still see a need to bring in Ødegaard? He's asking.
You're asking me?
Yes.
I thought you were. Where are we going to get the money from that? Buendia's at
Willock.
He's the Argentinian at Norwich, isn't he?
Yes.
I think this season he's got 14 goals and 16 assists.
Add one to both of those.
I was listening to Charles Watts earlier today. Still got a few other shows to catch up on. They're going to want 30-40 million pound for him. Ødegaard, they're going to want 30 or 40 million pound. That's nearly all of our transfer budget gone on one player.
Eduardo Hagen will say that you can get both Camavinga
Who
and
is that person? I've seen him everywhere.
I don't follow him. He's just,
is it a parody?
I know he says that he wants to be a football journalist. He's like an aspiring football journalist. I think he's taken it upon himself to be the Bell's replacement this summer. So bear that in mind. But he tweeted something about you can get both Camavinga and Basuma for 60 million combined, and everyone just went, no.
Good luck with that.
No chance.
But you look at our players this season. I mean, Willock has got 7 goals in 13 games for Newcastle. Ødegaard has got 1 all season. Ceballos has none. El Neni has 1, fluke. Jacques has had 1, and Partey's had none. I'm just looking here. Partey's had 27 shots at goal this season.
They're not
all of them.
That's generous.
All of them have gone out of the Emirates as well.
I should say it should say 27 shots at the way end, not at goal. Make it a little bit more accurate.
I think they hit Selhurst Park before they hit the Emirates.
Yeah, but we need someone who's going to score goals. Why spend money on people? We've had one bloke there, Ødegaard, who isn't scoring goals. He's a great player, but he's a bit of a luxury player. We want someone like Ramsey who's going to be up and down and score goals. His passing, as someone pointed out to me, his passing isn't that fantastic. But when you score goals, you don't need to worry about the passing. We need someone. I was watching the Sheffield United player. I was watching a video about him last night.
Okay.
Oh, he reminds me of Vieira. Not in exactly the same quality kind of player, but in his ability to. He's 6'5" and he loves to run with the ball. You ain't getting the ball off him, up and down, box to box the whole time. I thought I'd really like to see him. It's typical. I think, what do they pay? 23 million. We've offered them 18. They want 25. Just pay them, get him in. They want to get rid. They can't afford to keep him. He won't want to stay in the Championship. He's Norwegian. And I like everything about him. He loves to have a pot shot, but I wouldn't have Ødegaard. He's too good for us. And then Buendia, well, what did he do in the Premier League with Norwich in the first season? He was 1 goal, and he's done it in the Championship. Anyone can do it in the Championship. We've got someone there who has done it, and it's not like Willock is scoring against rubbish teams. He scored on his debut against Southampton. He scored 1 against Spurs, West Ham, Liverpool, Leicester, Man City, and then Sheffield United. We've got a player there who will slot in behind. If he likes to play on the right hand side a little bit, but we'd have Smith Rowe playing in the 10, and he can play in the midfielder next to Partey, and it's not going to cost us any money, which the conkies like.
I feel like, Andy, you're on the same kind of page as Danny regarding Willock. Is that, am I right in that assumption? I mean, if Newcastle came along and said, look, here's 35 million for a kid that's not played for you. Like really, he's had quite a few appearances, but he's not been like trusted to be a consistent player in the 11. If they come along and said, "Look, we're going to give you 35 million for this guy," are you tempted in any way to take that money?
If we know that the replacements and the money is going to be used for the right players, right? But at this point, I love I mean, my big thing, and I talk about it all the time, is giving English players a chance to play for Arsenal, and we have. We talked years ago about that British core. Well, we now have a little English core. Well, let's say British because Tierney's in there as well, that are actually making a big difference for this team and have a bright, bright future. I'd love to see him given a chance, but I agree with Pablo. The opportunities that he was given, he was played out of position or tactically he wasn't utilized. Bruce is allowing him to just roam forward and play attacking football, and we're not going to see that. So I think the system at Newcastle fits him very well. But I'm with Danny on this, and I would love to see Ødegaard return, probably on another loan. I do think he is too good for us, and but I think we're the right size club for him. I think he could bring us back to where he reminds me of everything we wanted Ozil to be. He tracks back, he defends. But man, when he gets the ball and he pushes forward, there's just something special that happens, and it allows Saka and Smith Rowe to just lose control and make runs, and like it's just he's a great player, and I'd love to see him, but we can't afford him. And Tom, you'll know better than me. Everything that you read online is Real Madrid are just desperate for cash. So maybe taking his wage bill for another season, get him embedded into our squad a little bit more. And then I think he's out of contract sooner than later, right? And so maybe if he sets up home in London, he'll want to stay. But I would prioritize him playing. I just think he's fantastic.
Yeah, I see both sides to it. I think that the thing with Ødegaard is he's very easy to overlook because of the lack of goal and assist output in raw numbers at the moment. At the end of the day, this is a guy that was injured for the first half of the season at Real Madrid, barely played a minute of football, had an amazing season at Real Sociedad previously on loan with them. He's barely played this season. He's come into a team in a completely new league that he doesn't know anything about, into a team that is in the lowest possible situation you've ever seen it at Arsenal. And we're expecting him to then drag this team to a Europa League victory and up to the top four. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen for him. And it's the wrong time. He needs time to settle and bed in, and he needs a pre-season at Arsenal. If we want to get Ødegaard in, then you need to get him in at the start of next season. But I think I have a couple of times on shows, I think pretty much after games where I've been like, I'm not that fussed on Ødegaard. But actually, when you sit back and you take a few minutes to reflect on him as a player and actually what he might need, I don't think he should be disregarded so carelessly, because I think he's someone that could make a difference. On Willock, though, it's interesting because that you talk about kind of, and what Pablo was saying about we don't use him in the right system, we don't use him here and there, and we could flourish. There's a couple of people in the chat saying that he's working at Newcastle because they don't dominate possession, which Arsenal do tend to do quite often. And maybe he works in that system out of possession where he can nip into the box on the counter-attack, win the ball back in midfield, stuff like that. And he isn't actually going to get used at Arsenal in the correct way. So if we're never going to get him to the best of his abilities at Arsenal, why not just take the money for him? Which I suppose is a fair point. I don't know what's going to happen really in the summer until we hear anything concrete. Supposedly he's open to the actual move to Newcastle. They're going to make a bid. That's for a guarantee at this stage. We just got to see how much it is and what Arsenal are willing to go for. I reckon that Arsenal are going to accept a fee way lower than we should be, though. I guarantee it.
It's going to be a Chesney situation all over again. That must be a typo.
Yeah, Kieran Gibbs got offered 8 million, rejected. Eventually, we sold him for 6 million. That is just what happens at Arsenal. Alexander in the chat, who was a long-time listener, says, "Lads, I got engaged tonight. She's a Gooner as well."
Oh, congratulations!
Congratulations, man. I think I've started a trend. First me, then Jared gets engaged. Now Matt. It's honestly, you need to stop, guys. You know, you'll end up start wearing black t-shirts every single week. So, Real Janice is asking Belotti or Boubacar Kamara. Andy, I know you know a lot about both of those players, so I'm going to let you tackle this one.
Is Belotti the forward for the Italians? Yeah, Torino. I know that when I bought him on Football Manager the last couple editions, he's absolutely banged in the goals. I don't know the other guy, so I'm going to take him.
I don't know much about Kamara either. I think he plays for Marseille. I'm just checking it. He does play for Marseille. He is 21 years old and he's scored no goals in 34 games. He's perfect.
Oh, get him in. Get it done.
If that is the right guy, I might be looking at the wrong guy. I don't know. But there you go. Carol asked an interesting question, Andy, that I'll ask you more fairly. He says, who has been your best player this season out of the Arsenal team? I don't know if she means outside of Arsenal, like just out of the Arsenal team. But go on, what do you think?
For me, it's got to be Saka. I've just been so impressed with him. He's so young. He's so poised. He's gotten better over the season. He's stepped up and scored some big goals for us. He's just absolutely superb. I can't wait to see him get into the Euros squad as well for England. I think he's just going to be fantastic. I think we've got one of the best young players in Europe. So for me, it's been him. And then, that's my answer.
There you go. Apparently, that Kamara guy is a centre back, so maybe it makes sense that he's got no goals in 34 games. I've never really heard of the guy. There you go. Always read the small print, people. There's a lesson. Let's scroll up and get another question. Manu Clerk says, Pablo, would you take Ceballos for £10 million?
No.
No, I don't think I would either. No. Matt Armchat AF says we have found it a trouble to score goals and create. Our defence is the second or third best. Surely more creative midfield options are needed. Why not buy someone in those sort of attacking areas, maybe an Ødegaard loan or Buendia? Do you think our problem this season has been the creation or just a lack of clinicalness in front of goal, or the easy answer, both?
Both, to be honest with you. We haven't created enough, but the times we have created, we have missed some right sitters throughout the whole season. You look back at some of the chances that Aubameyang's had, Saka's had, literally everybody. It's like they took it in turns, all missing absolute sitters. So, but saying that, I still don't think we create enough, nowhere near enough, especially at the beginning of the season before we played with a 10. We was diabolical. Absolutely diabolical. It has improved, but I still think someone like, I'll be honest, I'm really in for Buendia. I want to see him coming in. I know he didn't have a very good season in the Premier League. He had a good season, but just didn't score many goals.
It was the fourth highest chance created in the entirety of the league when that year. But
yeah, exactly. So even then he done well, and players develop. They develop as they start getting older, start getting used to the league and stuff like that. They develop, and I think that if we got someone like Buendia now, he would be an amazing asset to our team. If you've got players like him and Martinelli who are hungry, I mean, he reminds me a little bit of Martinelli reminds me of him of Martinelli, with the way they just sort of don't stop running. They're after everything. They want to create something out of nothing. They want to make it. They want to create. Where I think Ødegaard, as much as I do like him as a player, I think he can be passive sometimes, where it's like you sort of think to yourself, right, we need to. The only time I've actually seen him do it was against West Ham, where he actually got the game by the scruff of the neck and like pretty much won us the game. Apart from that, it's kind of like he plays very nice football, really good through balls. He's running up and down. His effort is there, but he just doesn't have that bite sort of thing that Buendia has. So to me, I'd prefer getting someone like Buendia in. He'll be coming from, no disrespect to Norwich, from a team that's lower than us.
Take some doing, but they are.
Yeah. Only because they came up from the Championship. By the end of next season, they might be higher. But So to me, I think he's the type of player that would want to come to Arsenal, because to him that would be a step up. Yeah.
For the go on. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
No, go on. Yeah, I was going to say. So to me, that's the player that I want on an attacking sense.
Did a tactical breakdown, of course, on Buendia. If you haven't checked it out, literally earlier on today, a few hours ago. So make sure you check it out. I just want to, seeing as you brought up about his running, just for you guys that didn't see the tactical breakdown, this is how his heat map compares to Grealish, Smith Rowe, and Martin Ødegaard. It's insane. Like, this guy runs so much, and he covers such a huge area of the pitch as well. I mean, you can just see the intensity in comparison to those others on the list. Grealish, of course, stays very much to the left-hand side. But Buendia is just, I mean, even in his own half, this guy gets back and covers the right back. Max Aarons needs the cover because he is so offensive in that position, but he does cover that position so well. But if you want to find out more about Buendia and how he compares to those three statistically, make sure you go and check out our video from earlier on today. Tim O'Brien says, what do you think the transfer budget before sale revenue is taken into consideration will be this summer?
Well, according to the owners, they're really, 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 really sorry, and they'll never do it again. Promise. Fingers crossed. I'm very sorry. And there's going to be big plans, and we're all going to love them again because they're going to throw a lot of money at. But I reckon the majority of our transfer budget is going to come from player sales. They may give another 100 million, but they're going, like with Pepe, that looked like a lot of money, 72 million, but that was a deposit and the rest over four seasons later. So do you include long-term projections on players and money spent, or do you just go, well, we've bought a player for 40 million, it's 10 million a season. Do you count 10 million this season, or do you include the whole 40? They'll include the whole 40. We'll only include the 10 for this season. But then when the sales come in, sometimes when you sell a player, you don't, especially if it's Barcelona, it could be 20, 30 years before you ever get your money. So I reckon maybe they're going to... Hey?
Yeah. Generous.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't even want to pay us for Van Bronckhorst, and that's why they let us have Cesc Fabregas. They valued him at £500,000 or something like that. Because they couldn't be bothered to pay for it. They never pay for stuff. But then I think maybe they're going to chuck in 100 million and maybe another 70-80 million pound in transfer sales of players, depending on what they get rid of. But hopefully it's maybe 250 is what we're going to spend on players this summer at a very, very push. But I wouldn't be surprised if we only bring in 3 or 4 players. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't spend actual any money, and he only lets in whatever you sell. That's what you can spend on players.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like you say, 250. That would be in my mind unreal. Like I was thinking like 150. Yeah, but in my mind, when you think about it, and I know that the reaction in the chat box might be 250. What you're talking about, but actually, if you think about the fact of how much we spend typically in a summer transfer window and have done, we spent nearly 600 million quid between 2015 and 2019 just on transfers. Mm-hmm. And we have spent upwards of 150 million pounds in windows on a self-sustaining model as it is described. If we are supposedly to believe that we have these big plans incoming from the owners to invest, then what Danny says there of 250 or close to that figure should not be a fantasy, because if that is the reality that we've heard from the owners, then that's what we've got to expect. And that includes obviously player sales and stuff like that. But it shouldn't be far-fetched to sit there and go, 250 million quid. Well, you've said that you want to invest, so prove it, because we spend 150 million without you doing that. So
this season we spent 80 and we sold 30. Season before that we spent 140 and sold 60. And the season before that, we spent 72 and made 8. So if they want to say sorry, 500 million and we're done.
Go on, Pablo.
I was going to say 250 million for owners that turn down nearly £2 billion because they don't need the money shouldn't be a lot of money, really.
We might be able to get Joe Willock from Newcastle for that if we're lucky. Jonathan Porter says, we don't want to enter the Conference Cup, yet we're opposed to the Super League because of its elitist kind of tendencies. Does this make fans hypocritical? The Cup Winners' Cup was huge, yet it wasn't the Premium Cup. We did discuss this a little bit earlier on, Jonathan, in regards to kind of the hypocrisy of it. So if you want to find out the answer to that question, make sure you do scroll back and listen to it. I did, before I go on to, we've got about just over 10 minutes left. So I did want to ask you guys a hypothetical question that I asked people about the takeover a while back and about the ownership, because tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure all of us are cronky out at this stage in time. I put this hypothetical scenario to some of the guests that jumped on. It was some people from the chat box that wanted to join. And I said, if the Cronkies make good on all of these promises, or I say the Cronkies, and when I say that, I mean Josh, because Stan doesn't give a toss, let's be real. Josh is the one that's involved. So if Josh Kroenke makes good on these promises, and what I mean by that is does these regular fan forums, does these fan representation on the board, and is a little bit more open with the guide of where we want to go and doing regular kind of stuff like that. And on top of that, invests like Danny's talking about there, and we end up spending roughly 200 million in transfer windows, and this continues consistently for the next 5 seasons. Is your mind, and I'll start with you, Andy, is your mind in any way, and I notice you've taken some control back of your podcast recently.
No. Reread it.
I see. I don't think that's right. You own all of the members now, is what you're saying. Pablo is yours. You've got him.
What is a Pablo?
Anyway, if they make good on all these promises and this goes forward, could your mind ever be changed on them? Is there any way that you could turn around and be like, you know what, fair enough, you've changed my mind?
Yeah, 100%. I hate to harp on him, but 4 years ago, I was one of the very few that got to sit in the room with Josh and hear him say off off camera, like off recordings. Essentially,
and
what
he's been in a room with Josh, you should know.
Yeah, what the perceived, I should get a T-shirt. What the perceived vision for Arsenal was, and as much as we hate him, and as much as we call bullshit, there has been change, right? Well, we talked about it a little bit before, like the phases of him getting rid of Ivan, Arsene. I mean, let's not forget, when Arsene Wenger was essentially fired, he moved to England for 6 months, and within 3 or 4 months, Arsene was gone, and then all of a sudden now Ivan's gone. So I think in hindsight, we are starting to see him change the board level, and hopefully that bleeds down. My biggest problem with the Kroenkes has always been just like, they should know to step up in a boardroom and go, 75 million for who? For Pepe? Why? What am I missing here? They should have that knowledge of global football, which they don't. And we all know the rumors that was a little bit of a weird deal with Raul and whatever. But if in 4 or 5 years from now, they invest in the squad, they make themselves more, I'm not going to say accessible to fans, because I think that's a bullshit argument. No ownership group should be accessible to fans. You don't see it at any other club. It shouldn't be the same at Arsenal. But if they make the accessibility for fans to know what's happening behind the scenes a little more, with a voice on the board, or, hey, we're going to have a pint, like we've seen with the Sunderland managers. I know Thomas is doing it with Charlton coming up when COVID kind of relaxes its stance. So the relationship changes and we get more kind of transparency, then yeah, I think all is forgiven. But as Pablo said earlier, Leno has 2 bad games, worst goalkeeper in the world, we need to sell him. If we make Champions League 2 years in a row, the Kroenkes will get erected stadiums outside of Arsenal, because that's our fan base, right? We're like, and then, hey, we drop into the Conference League again, we're tearing those down and we're ripping them and lighting them on fire. So I do think things will be forgiven, but there needs to be more than just service of the mouth. We need to actually see them put forward the effort. And we're seeing it a little bit, but not enough.
Yeah. Cayman Guna says, if they deliver everything we want and need, how can we say no? Said it once, I'll say it again, forgive but never forget. Danny, I'm interested to get your thoughts, and I'll come to Pablo. Is there any way, shape or form that you would ever not be Kroenke out based upon their actions if they change their ways?
I don't think they should bother. If the Arsenal fan group community are genuinely arseholes, they are never, ever going to be happy. I'd say don't bother with it, because Josh seems like a nice bloke. His dad just seems like a multi-business owner. And we were never, ever going to be, because if we want a player for a tenner, we'd bid £10 million for a player. Man City will go, we'll give you 20 and we'll double his wages. Unless you're going to compete with that and then be able to win the league. I know Leicester did it, but that was a one-off. Unless you're going to be able to do that, then Arsenal fans are never going to be happy. We're never, ever going to win the Premier League again. I mean, Nick, I wouldn't have been, unless the Man City, unless the FFP comes in and reform of clubs where they're not allowed to, and maybe a wage limit like they do in MLS and other sports like that. Unless things come in to make it a fair and even playing field, we're never going to do them. And when
let me challenge you on it, Danny. Let me. So I get what you're saying, and I've used this before. I've said, look, until you start spending like Man City, you're never going to get to that level. The argument against that, obviously, one of those routes is you turn around and say, yeah, Leicester City, one-off situation, absolute fluke. But what I would argue is that if you look at Liverpool and you say how they have sold players really well, they've bought players really well, and they've done it without investment necessarily from the owners. They've just done it through good decisions being made behind the scenes, the same way that Leicester are now in the top 4. That comes from the running of the club. So do you not think that it's worth them going and changing how they run the club to be a more successful football club rather than a successful, even though it isn't, moneymaker, if you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think as a club, the club is run well. I think we're one of the only clubs in the league that can self-sustain on match day revenue alone. Because plus we got out some of the big earners are going to be leaving, like we know Ozil's gone, Mkhitaryan's gone, Sanchez, and then Louise and William, 2 other massive earners are going. All we need to do is get rid of Aubameyang, and then we'll have a normal size wage bill coming up. But then it's going to be, you ain't ever going to do it. Look at Leicester; they've gone from Premier League champions, nothing, FA Cup. So they've got worse, but their fans are satisfied with, we've won the league once. Blackburn fans are still probably happy they've won the league. But Arsenal fans are never going to be happy, because we've had a taste of being magnificent from 1998 to 2007. We were one of the best teams in the world. And then that's where you need, like you were saying earlier, Andy, that's where we need to go back to, 10 years ago. And then things have gone downhill ever since then because the proper investment hasn't been done. You're never going to do it because Man City are never, ever going to let anyone else buy any. Like, who was it? Nathan Ake. Was it 40 million for the fifth choice defender? How are we going to compete with that? Players on, they're talking about bringing Messi on £500,000 a week. Arsenal are never going to do that. So Arsenal fans are never, ever going to... You could put anybody in charge of Arsenal. I mean, if this Ekthik bloke thinks he wants to come and buy Arsenal, you don't know Arsenal. You do not want to be involved with running a club like this unless you're a diehard gooner like any of us are. Then at least we could come and speak to the fans and go, look, realistically, we can't go and afford to pay 200 million for a player and then £400,000 a week. You know, as Arsenal fans, but they're going to, even some of the deluded morons on Twitter will go, why can't we do that? Spend all of your money that you spend generations, sell Walmart, make Arsenal great again. Why? Why should they? The club is self-sustaining at the moment. He's making his empire is worth more money because Arsenal are worth more money because football's worth more money. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't even make the top four for the next 3 or 4 seasons because you've got so many. What's happening at Everton? They are chucking a hell of a load of money at that, and they still haven't made the top 4. And they'll do it again next season with Ancelotti. And then Liverpool haven't even gone out and replaced Van Dijk, which we thought they would do in the summer. They've gone and bought that bloke from Preston who hasn't even played a game.
What do you want, though, Danny? Like, I understand what you're saying, and I get it. I get the whole argument of there's no point. They're never going to be able to match Man City, etc. But MIO reaction, the chat says, why can't we have, say, owners that act like the Leicester owners that come to the game, celebrate with the fans, that emotion, that attachment? I get the argument saying, look, what's the point of them investing because we're never going to be on that level of Man City? But do you not want an owner that is going to treat the club better, is going to run it to try and be successful as much as possible?
Yeah. But if we were successful, Tom, you wouldn't care if the owner was in the stands. None of us would. Because the city owner isn't there every week. Roman Abramovich has been banned from entering England for so long. At the end of the day, if we were in the Champions League consistently and we were winning trophies and let's be fair, we have had a little good run of trophies, no one would care if the Cronkies were in town. No one would care that they're So
you're right. I can't deny it. I'd be lying if I said. I think a lot of people in the chat box would say yes. Oh, I'd love Stan Kroenke to be on the pitch lifting a FA Cup trophy. How ridiculous that image is. But obviously, I'd much rather if they didn't give a toss and we were still winning every single season. So yes, you are 100% spot on.
But in the days of David Dean and Lord Hillwood and all that lot, that's when we had a board of people that are Arsenal fans and loved the club. That would go a little bit way towards appeasing the fans. If one of us, a proper Arsenal fans, was on the board, running the club, owned the club, that would appease them. But you need to get your head around it, Arsenal fans. We are never, ever going to be the club we were from 98 to 2006. That is never happening again until Man City, Chelsea, and maybe even Everton. We're seeing Everton for years. I mean, they've got James Rodriguez, for God's sake. One of the most expensive players in the world when he went from Monaco to Real Madrid after a magnificent World Cup with Colombia. That's the kind of players they're bringing in there. We are not going to do that. We can't do that. I was going back to the little thing we said earlier. Ødegaard is too good for us. We can't, as a mid-table side, we can't afford to have luxury players like Ødegaard. We need grafters like Willock. And that's where Arsenal are, people. And we're not even going to win the FA Cup. We're not going to win the Europa League. We're not going to win the Conference League. We're not going to win the FA Cup. We might go back to maybe going, I hope we get to the semi-finals of the League Cup. That's where Arsenal are. And we need to stick with it and hope that we don't piss Emery off so much that he goes. We're going nowhere as a club.
The Conference Cup. But Tom, to the point of the Cronkies, right? If I would have polled, if I would have polled, 50% of the stadium last night who owned the Colorado Avalanche, I don't know that half the owners would understand it was Kroenke. They've put a general manager in place. His name is Joe Sakic, and he's essentially the Thierry Henry of the Avalanche, greatest player that ever played, one of the greatest in the sports, and he's the one who's the face and the name of the club. So if anyone was who makes all the decisions, they're going to instantly go to Joe Sakic. They're not going to know who the Cronkies are, much like a lot of football supporters don't really know who owns their club, right? So I think if anything, we need to look at it with, it shouldn't be Stan or Josh there. It's Raul. Vinay's a fucking joke. The guy's an idiot. How the fuck he even squirmed his way into the position he's in. That's where people need to be pissed off, is that Vinay has the seat that he has on our fucking board. That should be a Dennis Bergkamp type role, right? That's what pisses me off.
Language, I told you.
Oh, he earlier messaged that his kids were asleep, so we could go in. So,
did he?
Yeah,
did Dave say that?
Like all this hatred going towards Kroenke Sports, like the hatred for Kroenke should be, get that fucking idiot out of his seat and put in someone who is a little bit more knowledgeable of how to run a football business, not just a business, but a football business. That's what annoys me. Because when I met Vinay and we asked him questions, he was fucking clueless. He didn't know his head from his ass. And I just sat here thinking, I could do your job. Like, you could pay me, Kroenke, half the money and I would be better at his job.
See, now that's what Daniel Ek sold me on, was the fact that he was talking about getting the Arsenal supporters involved, and he then was going. Obviously, you had the Henry, Bergkamp, Vieira sort of all going to be involved and stuff like that. That is what sold me, because to be honest with you, you know me, you know my views in it. I want Kroenke out, but that's because of all the lies and broken promises and lack of investment in where we are at the moment. But if he starts then spending money, I don't really care if he's at the stadium or not. I want to see my team, Arsenal Football Club, doing well. And I probably agree with Andy to a certain extent that, yeah, we're not going to be that club that is going to be winning titles season after season. But if we're challenging, if they can get us back to a stage where we're challenging for titles, yeah, then you always get the odd club like Liverpool, Leicester and stuff like that just keep poking in. So you'll have City will have a consistent run. Chelsea will probably try and have a consistent run. And then you have the odd clubs coming in. At the moment, because of the way football has changed from back in the days when we had Wenger with Henry and Bergkamp and all them, and we was winning doubles and all this sort of stuff, football has changed so much that you have to just accept for what it is. It's all money-based at the moment, yeah? So I would be personally quite happy to see Arsenal Football Club challenging for titles or being challenging for top four, and if we win 1 out of 5 or 6 seasons, I'll take that. I would actually take that. And I know it might be quite a low expectation for my football team, but I'm realistic. I know that Kroenkes are never going to try and keep up with Man City for money or with Chelsea for money. So we got to take what we can. And I think that, like I say, if they invest the money and get somebody on there that's got a football brain, because 70 million for Pepe, or 75, whatever it was, yeah, it's just outrageous. It's literally outrageous.
And that's where that's where the fans think, well, if we have a fan's voice, we can stop the Pepe transfers. No, that's not how it works. You're just going to get
all those fans that said John Raul when we actually bought Pepe. Like, remember that? Like,
yeah. And they're the same fans who think, well, if I have a voice on then I get to stop it. No. You're going to get minutes from the notes of what happened at the board meeting. That's all that means. And then they're going to give you maybe a 5-minute sounding board of how the fans react. If Kroenke was smart, right? If he picked up the phone right now and said, Andy, come down to the Pepsi Center, sit with me and tell me what to do, I would say, do what Ike is doing and get some of these legends on your board to help Edu and Arteta control this situation, and then have them come back to the fans for conversation. If you put Ian Wright on that board of directors, he'd be the first person when he heard Pepe for 75 million, the words coming out of his mouth would have been much like mine earlier. A lot of F-bombs being dropped. What are we doing? So if Kroenke's smart, he builds that board with some of these Arsenal legends. And the one thing that I've heard about, is it Ike or Eck?
Eck.
I read
when
an
you said
article,
Eck, I was like, are we who are you
sorry.
talking about?
Like Mike
this conspiracy theorist guy.
Yeah. Hers was saying that he thought this Eck kind of transfer was him just kind of boosting his ego and like his social media accounts. And I read an article, I'll have to share it with you guys. I mean, it literally was like, the guy has entered into business dealings with no chance and he gets what he wants. And I think what he's doing is absolutely brilliant. He's bringing in legends. He's going to get the fan base back into the Emirates next season. And a good friend of the pods, Tom Rosenhammer, last year or 2 years ago in LA, Kroenke stood up and he started to chant, "We want Kroenke out." Even the Bayern Munich fans were singing that with us, right? And I'm telling you, I think there's going to be a lot of that. And I do think that there's a possibility. But as Danny said, just because he comes in as owner doesn't mean this all changes and we're dropping $500 million a summer. That's not what's going to happen. He's not that rich.
Yeah. No,
it's amazing that most Arsenal fans know fuck all about football. If you morons knew anything about football, you wouldn't be sat here watching us. Remember that. Tom knows more about football than most of you put together, and he's not even running a club. Remember that. You lot, you don't know shit.
Yeah, I mean, I get relegated on Football Manager, so I get bored with it, to be honest, and I just sack in all the good players and see what I can do with the youth team. But how do I finish off this show now with all of this? It's obviously, I want this club to succeed. I want it to get back to where it was. The realistic thing is that when Arsenal were winning all these titles that we think about and we go back to it, and the whole rhetoric of, oh, but we're Arsenal Football Club, etc., etc. Yeah, we were Arsenal Football Club in the days where there weren't billionaires, and you won the league through good recruitment and good youth production and the good identification of talent, bringing your players with the good managers we had at the time who was very good for that type of football and that type of club during that type of football. It's not like that anymore. So the whole argument of, but we're Arsenal Football Club, but my expectations are higher, does not apply. It does not categorically exist now. Fact. However, Arsenal still should, with the size of club that they are and the money that they have been able to bring in because of the standing that they had when football changed, should aim to try and get as high as they can. And that is only going to happen through good recruitment, good selling, good appointment of coaches, and good decisions from an executive level, which has categorically not happened over the last 10 seasons and maybe more. We have failed to spend well. We have failed to sell well. We have appointed the wrong guys at the wrong time. We've got rid of the wrong guy. We've rather got rid of the right guys, but got rid of them at the wrong time. We kept Wenger for too long. We appointed Unai Emery, which was the stupidest decision we made. We then went and got an inexperienced coach to replace him, to take a club that was in the lowest possible position ever, to bring them out of that position. That I thought at the time, and I hold my hands up fully and go, I was so stupid to think that we were in a position where we could take a bit of a risk. We wasn't. And that's why, as Danny says, I'm not in charge of a football club, because I was fine with that at the time. But clearly that was wrong. And we should have gone with someone that was going to get the club to where it needed to be. And it's not going to happen at the moment. But we need to know that if a takeover happens, and you need to be real, as Andy says, they aren't going to come in and spend loads. They aren't going to come in and invest. They aren't going to click the financial takeover on FIFA career mode and buy loads of players. It's not going to happen. But what we do need to happen is just good decisions on a consistent basis. And that is what is needed at Arsenal Football Club. And that is the only way that things change. And it's as simple as that, as to be honest. I think that's probably where we'll end today's show. Thank you ever so much, everyone that has tuned in this evening. Really do appreciate your time. There's been a lot of good debate and differing opinions, which is what we strive to achieve. So if you have enjoyed it, and even if you haven't, please still do click that like button. And of course, if you are new to the channel and want to subscribe, we're obviously on our way now to 23,000. So we'd much appreciate if you join us on our journey to try and reach that. I'm finally thanking everyone on my panel. We are very, very honoured to be joined by the 25% owner of Spotify and Arsenal in Andy. Thank you so much. Much appreciated time.
Thank you so much for having me on. If you're wanting more Arsenal chatter, head over to what's the name of my pod again?
The same old Arsenal is
yeah. With Craig and Lee Gunner. No, wait, he's gonna kill me for that. I meant who's the bald guy again?
Oh my god!
Bring it at me, judges! Bring it at me, judges! No, head over to the Gooners Pod. Mike has Rebecca.
Free.
Yeah. Oh, he's gonna get so angry. Head over to the Gooners Pod. I think Mike's got Rebecca Lowe on right now, who's with NBC, and I think Kevin Campbell, Lee Dixon, some other folk are on there with him. So
There you go. Make sure you check them out. That's the Gooners Pod. Just type
Danny,
it in.
you've really upset some people in the chat room.
Did you see Lenny go? This is the first podcast I've not enjoyed in a long time. Oh, man.
It's the truth. You can't deal with the truth. Get out of the kitchen. That's insane.
That's fair enough. You've got to accept different opinions. The thing is that we've built a community here. The whole point of everyone in the chat box is that you are here because you know that we are welcome of all opinions as long as they're respectful. Danny's not told any of you to F off. He's just given his view and his opinion, and that's fine. He might want to tell you to F off on Twitter, and he can do that if he wants.
Barra has called me a pillock for swearing because I'm from America.
I'm not.
No, I'm not.
He's English.
Sorry.
Oh, goodness.
Sorry for swearing, Barra. My apologies.
Oh, my finger slipped on the block button. Pablo, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you, mate, as always, fella.
Brilliant. Thanks for having us. It's been quite an educational podcast. I actually found out what the Gooners Pod is.
And our guest next week will be Pablo.
Nah, brilliant. Honest and truly, could have gone on all night here talking about this. It's quite good fun. Really good fun.
There you go. So thank you so much, everyone that's tuned in, of course. And we will see you for tomorrow morning's 8 a.m. show, which is all about transfers and includes no swearing, guys. So you're all welcome. None whatsoever. But no, we'll be back tomorrow talking about loads of transfer stuff as we try and make sense of the rest of the transfer window. And hopefully we'll see ourselves spending £500 million this summer, which is the estimate. We'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.
That was fun.
Yeah. Wow.